Today's organigram. Today, we will be presenting about the company we chose to present, their background, and the process of their project that is related to the topic that we tackle in our course subject. And the first thing we need to know about EEI is their history. So, in the year 2000, EEI was already known as a pioneer Philippine contractor in the Middle East as it continued to acquire major projects in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. On the domestic front, the company's steel fabrication plant was constructing pressure vessels and module assemblies for overseas clients and was acquiring more high-rise building and infrastructure projects. In 2010, the company accelerated its recruitment activities, strengthened its quality and safety standards, and reinforced its business fundamentals as it grows. And lastly, at the present time, EEI takes pride in its quadruple A rating as a general engineering contractor, the highest category rating for contractors issued by the Department of Trade. So in the year 1931, they incorporated as a machinery and mill supply house in April 17, 1931. In 1940, they expanded into steel fabrication, metalworks, and shipbuilding. In 1950, they further developed its engineering shop facilities and had become a fabricator of storage tanks for oil companies and also got involved in power development. In 1965, EESCO changed its name to Engineering Equipment, Incorporated EEI. EEI's steel foundry and steel fabrications divisions were leaders in the East. So, in the year 1970, it was in 1974 that the company expanded into three main operating divisions: construction, machinery, and foundry. The company then established its overseas division and made its foray into the Middle East and Southeast Asia. In 1980, it continued to expand its steel fabrication division and its overseas division as it expanded its overseas construction activities to markets in Southeast Asia and the Middle East. Several subsidiaries were formed. The shipbuilding and marine repair activities became EEI Marine Corporation. And in 1990, more subsidiaries were established, including EEI Limited, which was designed to expand the Middle East and Asian markets for construction services. So, in the year 2000, EEI was already known as a pioneer Philippine contractor in the Middle East as it continued to acquire major projects in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. On the domestic front, the company's steel fabrication plant was constructing pressure vessels and module assemblies for overseas clients and was acquiring more high-rise building and infrastructure projects. In 2010, the company accelerated its recruitment activities, strengthened its quality and safety standards, and reinforced its business fundamentals as it grows. And lastly, at the present time, EEI takes pride in its quadruple A rating as a general engineering contractor, the highest category rating for contractors issued by the Department of Trade. So the mission of EEI is to build, lead, and serve responsibly. The first one is, we are the leading construction company in the Philippines with international operations committed to the highest level of quality, safety, and environment protection, providing innovative solutions and prompt delivery. Second one is, we provide products and services that give our customers the best value and compelling experience. The third one is, our people and our partners are the most valued assets. And lastly, we uplift the quality of life in the communities we serve. So the vision of EEI is a builder of a better future. First one of EEI will create not just one is, in the course of its work, EEI will minimize the use of resources, generate less waste, take better care of its environment, and influence others to do the same. Fourth one is, EEI will harness its creativity and will innovate, make use of new technology, develop new methodologies, and continuously find better ways to do it. And lastly, EEI will be an agent of positive and meaningful change as it promotes good corporate governance, better health in communities, and a better quality of life, not just for its people, but for the communities it serves.
In project management, there are 5 project management processes, namely the initiating process, the planning process, the executing process, the monitoring and controlling process, and the closing process. In this video, we will also be discussing about these processes, including what these processes are and what are the steps including these processes. The project of EEI Corporation, the NAIA Skyway, will be our example in these 5 processes. Let us begin with the initiating process. Initiating process involves starting a project. You can start a project by defining its objectives, scope, purpose, and deliverables to be produced. Goals and objective, problem, or opportunity is identified in this process. Ways to meet these goals and objectives, solve this problem, or seize the opportunity are brainstormed here in the process. The objective of the project is figured out. Feasibility is determined and major deliverables are identified. Initiating process includes identification of the problem, which your project will solve, and making it certain whether your project will be able to deliver a solution to that problem. Next is identification of the scope, by defining the depth and breadth of the project. Next is identification of deliverables, by defining the product or service to provide. And lastly, identification of the project stakeholders, by figuring out whom the project affects and what their needs may be. Also, in this process, you'll develop a statement of work or project initiation document. The statement of work is the document that captures and defines all aspects of your project. Problem scope, project scope, and product scope are also seen in the initiating process. Here, you can see for the objectives of the NAIA Skyway project and its problem scope. The objectives of the project is to provide easier and improved access to 3 NAIA terminals, which are the international gateway to the Philippines. Next is to reduce traffic congestion of roads related to NAIA terminals. And lastly is to improve international or domestic investment environment for easier economic development. And for the problem scope of this project, the current situation is the traffic in the roads related to the NAIA terminal are heavy. Why undesirable? It can affect economic development. Why address now? The traffic problems will worsen in the future. These are the project scope of the said project. The project scope contains the following: the project objectives, which define the major objectives to meet your customer. Next is the deliverables, which define the major deliverables. This includes time, quantity, and cost estimate, or expected outputs over the life of the project. Next is the milestone. It is a significant event of a project at point in time, and an important point of control. Next is the technical requirements. This can be speed of an engine, standards, or codes. Limits and exclusion. Limits of scope should be defined. And lastly, the review with customers to make sure for the understanding of agreement and expectations. After the initiating process is the planning process. Planning process is the process you go through to establish the steps required to define your project objectives, clarify the scope of what needs. The planning process comes when the project is approved to move forward. In the planning stage, teams are built, the large project is broken down into smaller tasks, and a schedule is prepared for the completion of all assignments. Smaller goals are created within the larger project so that each goal is achievable within the time frame. Planning process includes identification of the project timeline, the tasks which are to be performed and the possible constraint, creation of workflow documents to visualize the project timeline, estimation of budgets, and the creation of financial plans with the help of cost estimates, gathering resources by building teams and making sure that everyone has the tools required to perform their tasks. And lastly is the risk anticipation by identifying potential quality roadblocks. For the planning process steps, first is setting the project start date. Second, setting the project completion date. Third, selecting the project methodology or project life cycle to be used. 4. Determining the scope of the project in terms of phase of the selected project methodology or project life cycle. 5th, identifying and predetermine interim milestone or other critical which must be met. 6. Listing tasks by project phase in the order in which they may be accomplished. 7. Estimating the personnel necessary to accomplish each task. 8. Determining skill level necessary to perform each task. And lastly, determining task dependency. Which tasks can be done in parallel, which tasks require the completion of other tasks before they can start. These steps are important to know to have an effective plan. Work breakdown structure. Work breakdown structure are important in planning process. This is a structured definition of all the work of a project. The things we have to do, the documents we have to produce, and other tangible items we have to create. Using the WBS or the work breakdown structure, activities will be used as inputs to effort and cost estimating, sequencing and scheduling. Deliverables may be used as scheduling milestone, progress measurement checkpoints. The WBS is described as a hierarchical structure which is designed to logically subdivide all the work elements of the project into a graphical presentation. In developing a work breakdown structure, there are 6 steps to remember. Get the appropriate stakeholders together. Organize the first level according to how the work will be done or managed. Add a branch for project management, deliverables, and activities. Generate additional details for all branches. Arrange related items into hierarchy. Edit and revise as needed. Scheduling are also part in the planning process. Scheduling lays out the operational plan on a projected timescales, including the anticipated completion date. The construction companies use many ways in project scheduling. Gantt chart is one of the most common methods in project scheduling. A Gantt chart is a timeline that is used as a project management tool to illustrate how the project will run. You can view individual tasks, their durations, and the sequencing of these tasks. View the overall timeline of the project and the expected completion date. In the EEI project, Gantt chart is also used. Here are the example Gantt chart of the project. Here are the example of estimated construction costs of the project. It is important to have everything outlined and explained to the team and so that the team members can quickly get to the work in the next process. After planning, we reach the execution stage. In that above 2 stages, we work on receiving business approval, developing a plan, and building our team. Now it's time to start working. Executing process involves coordinating people and resources, as well as integrating and performing the activities of the project in accordance with the project plan. In this process, we will turn our plan into action. The project manager makes sure that the work is on track. He or she organizes team members, manages timeline, and makes sure that the work is done according to the original plan. Executing process includes creating tasks and organizing workflow by assigning granular aspects of the project to the right team members, explaining tasks to team members, providing necessary guidance on how the task should be completed, and organizing process-related training if necessary, communicating with team members, clients, and upper management, and providing updates to the stakeholders at all levels. Executing process activities. Direct and manage project execution. Perform quality assurance. Acquire project team. Develop project team. Information distribution. Request seller response and select sellers.
So now, let's tackle about monitoring and controlling process. This monitoring and controlling process involves tracking the actual project performance with the planned project management activities. Also, this process assesses measures and trends to forecast potential items requiring corrective action. This includes monitoring project risk and ensuring that they are being managed according to the project's risk plans. This process of monitoring and controlling project work is important as it can happen that you are able to complete your project on time. These are needed to be performed to observe proper execution of project so that the potential problems can be identified. This monitoring and controlling process includes managing time, cost, and quality. It also includes managing risk and issues. And lastly, it includes managing suppliers and customers. There are several tasks in monitoring and controlling process. This includes the measuring of the actual performance against the planned performance, assessing performance to determine whether or not any corrective or preventive actions are indicated, maintaining an accurate, timely information base concerned with the project output. Also, this includes providing information to support status reporting, progress measurement, and forecasting. Providing forecast to update current cost and current schedule information. And lastly, monitoring implementation of approved changes as they occur. Lastly, let's tackle about the closing process. This is the last phase in the project. In this phase, you will formally close your project and then report its overall level of success to your sponsor. The key benefits of this process are the project or phase information is archived, the planned work is completed, and organizational team resources are released to pursue new endeavors. There are so many closing process tasks like handing over the deliverables to your customer, passing the documentation to the business, canceling supplier contracts, releasing staff and equipment, and lastly, informing stakeholders of the closure of the project. There are also activities in this closing process, the close project, contract closure, and post-implementation review. Post-implementation review is needed to know how the project went, whether it achieved the result as expected. And this post-implementation review includes description of the project, review process, review findings, non-financial analysis, financial analysis, detailed key results, project timeline, risk management, and lesson learned. So now, let me tackle to you about the NAIA Skyway project on when it is opened to the public motorists. The last phase of NAIA Trip Skyway Expressway project, Package 4C, is the construction of a half-kilometer two-lane viaduct which is connected to the completed Package 4A and descends in front of NAIA 3. On September 22, 2016, at exactly 12:01 a.m. Philippine time, the second phase of the airport expressway from was opened to all motorists and airport passengers rushing to their flights in order to avoid the traffic lights at every intersection along the NAIA Road. On December 21, 2016, at exactly 6 a.m., the road SLEX Skyway segment, including the access ramp to Terminal 3 of the Airport Expressway, was opened to all motorists for the Christmas rush. And on December 28, 2016, the access ramps to Manila-Cavite Expressway or Cavitex were also open to all motorists coming from the province of Cavite and Las Piñas for easier access to Terminals 1, 2, and 3, and vice versa. And lastly, on June 2, 2017, NAIA X was fully opened to all motorists.